horror is a genre that most people think about. And you're also thinking about how this probably should have came out at the end of October. And I'm like, no. Just because the spoopy holiday is October 31st does not mean that I can only talk about horror on October 31st or in October. You see, Halloween lasts from December 31st to from January 1st to December 31st. Yep, I've told people that. So, mainly, this is just going to be me talking about the horror genre in general, as well as the slight nitpicks that I have with it. This is one of those videos where I just talk about my problems with a specific genre or topic or what have you that is in the media or what have you. I don't know why I keep on saying what have you. Anyways, so mainly this bearded gentleman of 27 years has been consuming horror genre stuff for decades at this point. You see, when this little lad was without a beard and was young, his eldest sister decided that whenever she watched over me and my other two siblings, that we would watch horror films. As a result, I have grown to have an appreciation of the horror genre, as well as all things spook. Do I take things well when I am spooked? A little bit. It depends. For the most part, if it is something that is slow, methodical, and plodding on and on to the eventual crescendo of horror, yes. If it's just jump scare city, no, not really. It's one of those things where I have seen multiple horror films several times. Some have led me to be happy that I've watched it. Other times I'm just like, this fucking sucks. So it's mainly the point of how horror films are nowadays, or horror in general. You see, horror as a genre is meant to make you feel uncomfortable. It is meant to make you feel that feeling that everything is not all right. It is there to make you have these emotions of suspense and fright and uncomfortable. It makes you look at the world differently from what it could have been if some things turned out differently. It also is able to play into more themes that aren't usually talked about. The body horror, the existential dread, everything. It can talk about a lot of interesting topics. That being said, most horror movies nowadays are just boo, jump scare, loud bang, and it becomes kind of difficult to be able to watch them and find some sort of enjoyment out of them. Not saying that you can't. Sometimes you just want to watch a movie that is just like, yeah, I'm keeping that in. So it's just one of those situations where you mostly watch something and you get used to the plot points that are happening within it, either though that you want to experience something differently, but you never really do. And that kind of sucks. Also, horror in general is one of those genres that if you watch a movie, it's like most of the really bad movies are horror movies, and if you've watched any of those bad movies, you're just like, ooh, I don't think you're supposed to be making a comedy right now. So it definitely has that happening where it is a very delicate balance between over the top spectacle, but also trying to put it in a realism of sorts. Because of that, it is quite difficult to accomplish, which is why it's has very hard times where you could actually function as a good movie or a good story. Like, The fact that sometimes creature designs also, you can get really wacky and zany, and sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you probably should not be doing that. It is a very difficult genre to accomplish, and you can have many different stories told within them. For instance, because I've talked about it on my channel, Uzumaki. Uzumaki is a very interesting series in the fact that it takes H.P. Lovecraft, cuts out all the xenophobia, racism, what other things? Weird pseudoscience that doesn't really make sense, but it made sense in H.P. Lovecraft's head, and puts in the sort of Japanese style telling of it, as well as the weird fixation that you can have with spirals. And it does it pretty well. When you put horror in a medium like a manga, you have to be able to pace it out in a way that it is sort of suspenseful. The way that it does that, and I remember watching a video at one point where someone was talking about this and how it accomplished that. Don't remember that video, what the name of it is, because that was several years ago, but you could probably find it if you watch enough YouTube. It's essentially just like talking about the fact that how Junji Ito creates suspense is with the page turn, and that most of the shocking things that happen in it is when you turn the page and bam, it's right there. And it does it very effectively, and he has several other stories that utilize this technique very well, like I forgot how you pronounce it, but it's Irigami Faults. It's the one where there was an earthquake and then a fault opened up, and then people see outlines of other people, and then they go into it. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one does it very, very successful, and so on and so forth. There's other things like in, I think, right, like books wise, the best way to describe horror in those are suspenseful. You can't really get the shock value of an image, but you can get it there by explaining, by not really explaining, by slowly revealing details that is the actual physical horror that you are experiencing. Also, the fact that based off of time is one of the few things that is important. Over time, horror as a whole utilizes time well if you do it well. If you keep on suspending it, eventually the audience gets bored, and as a result, you lose, engagement, which in turn means that people kind of turn their brains off and don't really care, which is why I feel like most horror films nowadays utilize and rely upon the jump scare, because that's the only way for people sometimes to get involved and to stay engaged with the film or the product or what have you. But I would say that horror films nowadays, and horror in general, you don't really need to utilize jump scares as much as you think. For instance, the one that I remember seeing and having someone talk about it is the first Halloween movie, where the detective, or was it the doctor? I think the doctor was in front of a house and he was looking, and instead of like the bombastic brrr, whenever there was a thing that happened, there was no music. He just had someone grab his shoulder, and it wasn't, Michael Myers. It was just a cop. And it made it more successful because you weren't expecting it, and there wasn't a music cue just saying, hey, be fucking scared. No, it was, hey, someone just grabbed him. You don't know what's happening, and oh, okay. Oh, it's just cop. We're fine. And it's one of those situations in which more shit should do that. More shit should not just rely upon loud sound, loud music cue. It should be suspenseful, should be slow, methodical, should be scary because you don't know what's going to happen, not because, loud noise. That's where it becomes a little bit better. Like, if you have a movie or a product or a manga or what have you that has horror in it, you should strive to be able to create suspense and not rely upon jump scares. Jump scares are fine every once in a while, but I do not think they should be utilized as much. And, horror as a whole is very subjective. For instance, if you've ever watched any of the Scream movies, they are satire. They are 100% satire, but you can still be frightened by it. If you have watched a lot of horror movies, you will find them absolutely hilarious. Me and my siblings have watched 1 through 4 before the last one came out, which I don't even know why they released another one. Who fucking cares? 1 through 4, all at the same time, and by 4, we were just tired of laughing because Jesus Christ, the stupidity in that movie is great, but also the satire is funny. It is quite literally a good series to watch if you have friends that have watched horror movies, or you just want a good laugh and you are tired of watching the same horror movies. It is really solid. Also, horror movies as general can be funny because of the stupid situations. Though, nowadays, I don't think that, people making poor decisions in times of stress, I always thought it was stupid. Like, certain situations of horror movies, I always thought, why would anyone do that? Why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you do that? But then 2020 happened, and I no longer think that. I thought better of humanity. I shouldn't have. So, yes. The main points of this rambling is that horror as a whole should utilize jump scares less, utilize suspense more, utilize fucking psychological bullshit going on, as well as not telling everyone what the fuck is happening. Quite literally, oh man, this is what's happening, this is the person that's going, I understand you want to have a sympathetic villain, but sometimes evil just happens. Sometimes serial killers are out there that just do things, and you never know why. Sometimes you just do not know. Sometimes it's just wrong place, wrong time, motherfucker. It quite literally is an interesting thing just to have evil for the sake of evil. And sometimes that's a lot better. I should stop saying sometimes. So, yes, I think that's it. I understand, like I said at the beginning, this is a little bit late, but I don't really care. I didn't feel like recording anything at the end of October, and last week I put out my Manga Log, so here we go. And it's still spoopy no matter what people say. So, if you enjoyed this video, think about hitting the like button down below. If you want to leave a comment about what you thought about this topic, go ahead and leave a comment. What's your favorite horror film or horror video game or horror manga or horror media in general? I am interested. I do listen to the feedback if I get that. Yeah. If you want to see more of this stupid bearded face, think about hitting the subscribe button. I put out videos at some point. Sometimes on a regular basis, sometimes not. It just depends. Yeah, that's about it. I have other random videos if you want to see more of that. Go on. Go crazy. So, with that being said, hopefully you have a lovely rest of your day, week, month, year, what have you. And, just stay safe, read some manga, play some video games, watch some horror movies. That's it.